All right, let's get to the Phillies all-time depth chart portion of the day. And we have the top 3 shortstops of all time. Starting at number 3, I'm not going to pretend I ever saw this man play. His name sounds fake, but Granny Hammer.
That's not his full name, Jamie.
All right,
Introduce
why
our
don't you
man.
hit us with the full name? I know you're big on this.
I am. Oh, I lost his name.
It's in our text. You
His
texted
full
it.
name is none other. Wait, I wasn't ready.
Oh, boy.
I wasn't ready.
It's right here.
Okay.
Granville Granny Hammer.
You forgot the important part. Granville Wilbur.
Oh, Wilbur's a good name.
Yeah, it's a solid middle
pro
name.
Wilbur.
It's giving, yeah, Granny Wilbur.
Wilbur. Yes, Granny Hammer.
Charlotte's Web Wilbur.
And I don't mean any offense to the Hamner family because obviously a pretty good player. This kind of shows you how weak shortstop is throughout the Phillies' history. Long history. Granny Hammer was a 3-time NL All-Star, and as Todd Zalecki said, he was Bowa before Larry Bowa existed. Tough as nails and one heck of a competitor. He made 3 All-Star teams. He earned an NL MVP vote in 6 seasons with the Phillies, including a 6th-place finish in 1950 when the Whiz Kids won the pennant. So I don't really have a whole lot else to say about Granny Hammer, but he comes in at number 3 on the all-time Philly shortstop
They were
list.
his numbers, and put some respect on the man's name. 16 years with the Phillies throughout 1,500 Ks.
I don't mean any disrespect. I just don't know shit about this guy.
305, 385 with over 1,500 hits, 103 home runs, 271 doubles, 705 RBIs, 707 runs, 35 stolen bases. He might be real. He might be a cartoon character. Don't disrespect the Hamner brothers, because not only was Granny good, his brother Garvin was also a Major League Baseball.
Wow.
Wait, his first name was Granville.
Well, to me, he's Wilbur. His friends called him Wilbur.
Garvin and Granville, a.k.a. Wilbur, a.k.a. Granny, were both players in Major League Baseball. Shout out to them. They were one of the original brothers that made it to the professionals. And we know Philly sports have a history. They were the original Kelsey brothers. They were the original Stubbs brothers.
Everybody always says that. Yeah.
That was them. But also, he was, as you mentioned, part of the Whiz Kids, and was definitely in his numbers somebody that was very popular for everybody in 1950 that they knew of, Granny. So shout out to him. And I think to take your point about the picture of shortstops, I think it's bigger. Most of our list, we have guys that are from
you have to go back to the turn of the century,
50, 60 years. And honestly, the next guy up, 1915 and 1920, Dave Bancroft was one of those names that was in the mix.
Don't forget about Mickey Doolin from 1905 to 1913.
Right. Like, we had to go back over 100 years to figure out who was going to be number 3. Obviously, Granny's not over 100 years ago. I know math.
Don't forget Dick Bartell in 1930.
That's a thing.
And Bob Allen in 1890. Ruben Amaro got some shout out in the 60s. But the sad
thing is, part of the reason why why I was a lock for him was the fact that he did play so many seasons with the Phillies. The only thing that kept me from the early 1900s, 1800s guys was they only played 5 or 6 seasons with the Quakers and the Phillies at the time. So,
Tyler, your thoughts on Granny Hamner before we move on?
Sure.
One of your favorite shortstops?
Yeah, I mean, I probably put him right up there with the greats.
Yeah.
He's, all time. He's like Derek Jeter, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Ozzie Smith.
Rick said his finishing move was the Granny body slammer.
How about some respect for Freddy Galvis?
Yeah. Well, he does get an honorable mention in Todd Zalecki's list he did. And he said, can somebody explain to me how Freddy Galvis never won a Gold Glove?
Oh, I've said that for a long time.
That's a great question.
I can tell you exactly how. There's one name. It's Brandon Crawford. Yeah. Brandon Crawford's the reason Freddy Galvis never won a Gold Glove.
But wasn't he like a 99.4 fielding percentage or something?
Who? Brandon Crawford?
Galvis.
Galvis was great defensively.
Yeah, he really was.
Brandon Crawford was just also equally and sometimes better.
Well, better offensively. Probably gave him the nudge.
And last thing on Granny before we move along, because
I think we've done enough on Granny. I don't think anybody knows who Granny is.
Don't disrespect Granny. He had the most defensive assists in 1949 with 506. And the most double plays turned as a shortstop in 1949 at 101.
Wow.
Wow.
Granny was a ball player.
Granny was a ball player. Go, Granny.
All right.
Go, Granny.
Now the two on the list that everybody knows and loves, faces of the franchise. Number 2, and Larry Bowa has said himself that Jimmy Rollins was the better player. So when the man himself says
gotta listen
we'll
to
give him the nod. Larry Bowa comes in as the second greatest Phillies shortstop of all time. 12 years with the Phillies, 1,739 games with the Phillies. Slash line with the Phils, 264, 301, 324. More hits than games played, which is always a good sign. 13 home runs can't be right, is it?
That's right.
Career?
13. Well, with the Phillies, yeah.
That's it?
I mean, his season high with the Phillies was 4.
Okay, I have to raise my hand. I did not realize that about Larry Bowa. Wow. Not much power at all out of the Bowa man.
Did you ever watch his at-bats?
Yeah.
He looked like a little leaguer up there.
Yeah.
But then he would hit. I mean,
I didn't realize
hit
that.
a little
13
bit.
home runs in 12 years.
Maybe Granny should have been number 2.
No, but Larry Bowa.
He was a contact hitter. He didn't strike out a lot.
But 13?
Career high in strikeouts in the
Those are Ben
season
Revere
is
numbers.
61.
Wow.
Doesn't walk a ton. His OBP is right at the 300 mark for his career. Like,
I'm blown away
he
by
was
that.
a slap hitter.
Yeah, Larry's the man, but 13 home runs.
Choke up with 2 strikes, you know.
I would have thought he lucked into a couple more than that.
I mean, there are guys getting double that in one season now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Bowa had
15 career home runs, 99 career triples.
Yeah, almost 2,200 career hits. As we just said, almost 1,800 of those with the Phillies. He had a 980 fielding percentage at shortstop, which is tied for the 9th in baseball history. So that's pretty good. 5-time All-Star with the Phils, won 2 Gold Gloves, got some NL MVP votes in 4 seasons, and he was the shortstop of the 1980 team. Later managed the Phils. He's a Phils all-timer legend. Larry Bowa comes in at number 2.
Yeah, and I finished Tyler's numbers here. 206 doubles. I know you got stumped after 13 home runs.
Yeah, that
JD.
blew my mind. I'm not going to lie. That blew my mind.
421 RBIs. I got you on the assist. 816 runs, 288 stolen bases. Now that's remarkable. 2-time Gold Glover, as you mentioned, a 16.8 D WAR, and 5 times led the league in shortstop fielding percentage, as you were talking about. The numbers are remarkable when you look at, although he didn't hit a lot of home runs, stealing bases, his D WAR, his fielding percentage. Yeah, number 2, without a doubt, Larry Bowa.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Tyler, Larry Bowa.
Yeah, I mean, elite defender, not a lot of pop. You know exactly what Larry Bowa was. He was a kind of the heartbeat of the teams throughout the 70s. Part of the heartbeat of the teams throughout the 70s was an elite defender. By the way, I think these guys that played in the 70s and 80s specifically, I guess any time in the vet, but the 70s and 80s specifically, before the turf got, quote, good, was you're playing on concrete, right? And you were playing a really difficult position on concrete. So, like, guys like Bowa, and then to the upper echelon, guys like Ozzie Smith, these guys that are defensive wizards trying to play on concrete, I give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, sure.
I know Hypothetical Man saying for the longest time that it was a premium defensive position.
Yeah,
and
it
I know
was.
Kevin's mentioning ballparks were smaller. Yeah, that's a thing. It was a different
Still
time.
13.
It was a much different time, or ballparks are smaller today. And Kim is mentioning that, you know, and wondering what the average home runs per season back then were. I know when we were reading about different guys, Ed and who was the other one that we were? Oh, McGee, Sherry McGee, different guys over the years. Mr. Sherwood from back in 1901. You know, home runs weren't really hit as much back then. It's a much different game now than it was back in that day. In our day.
1, 2, 3.
It's wild.
4, 5, 6 seasons with the Phillies with 0 home runs.
Sounds about right.
That is wild. I did
There's
not
something
realize
about
that
Larry
about Larry
Bowa that you didn't know.
Yeah, but a great all-time Philly, great defender, one of the best fielders ever at the most
Jamie
important.
just ignores my food.
I'm sorry.
I'm
trying to
about
wrap
that.
up. I'm trying to
I
wrap
know.
up.
Hurry up.
Larry Bowa himself said it. I wasn't a great player. I was a good player.
Mhm.
Jimmy is a great player. Yeah, I think he's a great player. And number 1 on the list, Jimmy Rollins, all-time leader in hits in franchise history. He was the wizard. He was the heartbeat. He was the straw that stirred the drink for a championship club. 15 years with the Phillies, which is unbelievable. Almost 2,100 games. 267, 327, 424, 2,300 hits, 200-plus home runs. Look at those double numbers. 479 doubles. I love Jimmy Rollins' doubles to the gap. It was just a beautiful thing. 887 RBIs, 1,300-plus runs scored, 453 stolen bases, won the 2007 MVP, 4-time Gold Glove winner, 4-time 40-plus stolen base guy, and again, the all-time hits leader. Jimmy Rollins, to me, is a Hall of Famer. I think it's going to be close if he gets in one way or the other. J-Roll was just the man.
Yeah, and I loved the nugget. I was reading Todd Zalecki mentioning that when he spoke to Larry Bowa in 2006, the spring of 2006, about Jimmy Rollins and if J-Roll could be the greatest shortstop in Phillies history, Larry was like, I don't know, I need to see him play a little bit longer. Fast forward 2 years later, 2008, he was like, yep. And exactly as mentioned, he's got it. He's great. But Mr. Some people call me Jimmy, and they say when I put on a uniform, I turned into J-Roll, Jimmy Rollins. Yeah, he definitely locked it at number one. And the shortstop position has changed a lot. And I think he was a part of that big change of now not only just being a defensive premium, but also a guy that can hit 25 home runs, 83 RBIs, and 811 OPS in just the 2006 season alone.